It's good. You can put it at the end of the episode. This is what we do. We put all the bloopers and shit at the end of the episode.
Oh, really? All right.
Yeah, if you ever listen to our thing after the music plays, after whatever song plays, then at the end there's always an extra something.
Nice.
Fucking stupidity.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to HASSDISCUSSES. We are joined by Mike D, joining me, Michael Hassipin, to do a podcasting interview. He is of the Jacked Kirby podcast, not Jack Kirby, Jacked Kirby, the podcast. And I met this gentleman through Tommy. Shout out to Tommy. How did you start making stuff with Tommy?
Oh man. Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. I always think it's cool to jump on other people's shows. We ask a lot of people to be with us, and it helps us get through things. So it's not just me and Tommy. So anytime someone asks, I'm always down to do it. I know Tommy a long time. We have a common friend that I know since kindergarten, and Tommy knows also from around that same age, but not in the same circle. So when we got older, we kind of gravitated towards each other, probably in our teenage, early 20s, and through that one common friend. And then we became, kind of inseparable, and we've been associated together in a lot of different creative endeavors. We've done art shows together that we put on. We've, done promotions and things like that. And we've had this podcast now going on
2017, right?
Years. Yeah, 3.5 years, something like that.
Yeah.
This summer will be 4 years, yeah.
That's awesome, man. So, what were those creative endeavors before the show started, besides just art shows? Is there...
So we had a website. I started a website back in 2009 or 10 that was called CCD, Cultural Compulsive Disorder. And it was just a blog. Everybody was doing blogs and shit back then. And I did it by myself. I was like, fuck this. I had a lot to say, and a lot of things that I wanted to document for myself. I'm glad I did it, because I look back at some of that shit, and it's really, fun stuff to revisit. And it quickly became an undertaking, to put out content every day when also having a full-time job and kids and shit is not easy. So I started reaching out to my friends who were also creative, and I was like, yo, what the fuck? Get involved here, right? Why wouldn't you guys want to do this? I own this website. I publish it. Nobody could tell us no, or, whatever. Yeah. So I said, whatever you want to do, you can do. And I reached out to all my friends, musicians, you got music, let's put it up. Fucking people who want to talk about TV shows, do it.
Dude, I want to find this website now, dude. What?
Yeah, if you go, so it used to be the fucking long blogspot name, whatever. And then eventually when it got bigger, we shortened it. So it's ccd.nyc. We got a New York City extension.
Which snap. You still post?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I actually just started reposting. I've been doing a lot of writing, and so I've been using it as a vehicle to write, mostly about horror movies and shit. But there's over 5,000 articles on there. It's it goes back years. And Tommy was one of the first people to respond and be like, yes, he's an artist. He's an amazing artist. And he would be like, I want to post some art. I want to do theme things. I want to, whatever. And he was the first person to really respond. And then over time, a lot of our friends got involved with it. It became a group effort. And my partner, Rob, he came into the fold a couple of years down the road. And he is more on the technical side. He works for he works for HBO, and he's in production. He's the one who produces all the podcasts. He's the one who does all the video content. And he was like, yo, I want to take this to the next level. So that's when we got the ccd.nyc domain. And that's when we started the CCD podcast, which was Rob's podcast that I would frequent. Tommy was on. Everybody, all our friends were on. We did 100 episodes of that. It was great. And that was our first foray into
podcasting world.
Yeah, and that CCD podcast was awesome. There would always be a theme. Every week it was a different theme, whatever the fuck we wanted to talk about. and Rob would have guests. And I wasn't on every episode. I was on probably like 20 out of the 100, but he would have all these different guests. It was great. And it really kind of got us into podcasting. And then I had an idea to do this podcast about Jack Kirby. I felt like there was not enough information out there about Jack Kirby, and I also thought it would be funny for like me and my friends to fuck around and talk about comic books. So, and that's how it started.
I know a lot about comic books. I used to have a comic book YouTube channel. I removed all the videos. I feel like a dickhead for that, but like it was a good moment where I was like, it was the first time I did film reviews too, because I've reviewed comic book films, but I would vlog myself going to Comic Cons and getting some cool finds, like it was so much fun. And like this is really bringing it back to like a while ago. Like
that was one of the things that we so when we got the CCD website, I don't know, I think it was something came up and I got like an application for press passes for something. And I was like, nah, like, like we applied and we got them for like, it was like a movie screening or some shit. And so we went and it was fucking awesome. It was like a sneak preview to a movie. And I was like, okay, cool. And then we got invited to the Big Apple Comic-Con at the hotel in Manhattan. Not the Javits Center one, the smaller one. And we were like, all right, let's do it up. So me and Tommy went to this Comic-Con with a camcorder with no experience. We never did this before. And we interviewed mad people. We interviewed the Human Centipede cast. We interviewed Doug Bradley, who played the Silver Surfer.
Oh my God. Where is this footage?
It's all on YouTube. I'll send you all the links. Like, we left all the videos up there. It's all on YouTube on the CCD channel. So then the next year we were like, fuck it. We always went to Javits Center. So let's apply for some press passes to New York Comic-Con. And we got them. So I got to interview Max Brooks, Mel Brooks' son, who wrote World War Z. Fucking, you know what I mean? Like, the zombie survival guide in World War Z. We interviewed fucking Carol Spiney, Big Bird. The guy who played Big Bird. Like, we interviewed all these people. Yeah. Tommy did that interview because he loves Sesame Street. He's a huge Sesame Street fan. So he did that interview. But we interviewed the artist, why am I drawing a blank right now on his name? Alan Moore's partner on V for Vendetta, David Lloyd, I think. Maybe I might
I'll
be
fact check that.
Yeah, it's whoever the artist was on V for Vendetta. I'm drawing a blank. I'm confusing him with Watchmen.
David Lloyd.
David Lloyd.
Right?
Yeah. So he's like a legendary artist. We all these different crazy people. And we just did it. We didn't even know what the fuck we were doing. We had cameras that were shit. We had audio that was shit. And we just made it work, man. It's like, it's funny. It's like we were interviewing Doug Bradley at that Comic-Con, and somebody walked through the fucking interview. Like, we were doing it, and someone walked right past. And Doug Bradley was like, yeah, it's all right. Don't worry about it. We'll fix it. We'll fix it in post or whatever, like in production. And we were like, yeah, all right, we're gonna just that's gonna just stay up there the way it is, man. Like, we don't even know what the fuck we're doing here.
You don't even know what a timeline. You probably didn't know what a timeline was on a video editing software at the time, but I
still don't.
Well, it's good that you have friends. Do you at least you got the crew? It seems like you got a crew.
Yeah. So I mean, it's good, and that's what the whole CCD.
Wait, your hat is the Joe Bob Briggs.
Dude. Yeah. Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah.
Dude, I got Shudder a couple years ago, and I started watching his new series on it, and I started checking out the old one as well.
So you're a young dude. So I know you. You're a little bit young. I said Doug Bradley. I meant Doug Jones. Sorry. Doug Bradley is Pinhead. Doug Jones is the famous Pan's Labyrinth, and he's the Silver Surfer. He's the special effects actor. Yeah. Sorry about that. I'm a lot older than you, I would assume. How old are you?
I'm 17.
All right. See, all right. I'm 42 years old. So when I was about your age, I started watching Joe Bob on USA, and TNT. He had two different shows. One was on USA and one was on TNT. And he would show the same kind of shitty movies and do the same kind of commentary, but on cable. And I grew up on that, The Last Drive-In, and he was the man. So when he got on Shudder, I was like, awesome. And when they were like, we got merch, I was like, yes, I will buy that.
They had a Chud. My favorite was the Chud review. Chud is goated. I love that movie.
That's awesome, man.
It's so because it has what's the guy from Home Alone in it?
Daniel. Oh God. Yeah, he's one of the burglars. I can't. I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Or the Wet Bandits.
Yeah, the Wet Bandits. Do you ever think they might?
Well, the Sticky Bandits now. Oh God. Sticky Bandit sounds like a porno
Daniel Stern. Daniel Stern.
Yeah,
yes.
For sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Young Daniel Stern.
So what I heard about you though is that you're into hip hop.
I am.
Because I interview a lot of rappers on the show. New and old artists. Like I don't just review that new kid who's singing. Like I like the old school stuff as well. But like, what songs or artists are you a fan of?
Well, it's funny because I'm a teacher, right? I teach middle school and I've taught high school in New York City for the last, 15 years of my career. And it's hard to not kind of pay attention to what's going on currently because all my students, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, and they're all listening to, hip hop, R&B, pop music, whatever it is. So you're kind of forced, whether you like it or not, you're kind of forced into being around it. So it's kind of like, all right, I might as well open my mind to it. Not to mention the fact that I have a son that's your age. I have a son that's 17 years old. So, like he is constantly like, he was raised around hip hop music. I grew up 80s, 90s hip hop is like my life. And he was raised around that. So, he's like, hey, you'll like this, try this, listen to this. And I'm like, all right, cool. And most of the time I'm pretty receptive to it. I mean, like, modern stuff that I really, really dig. I love Pop Smoke. He's fucking amazing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I love Uzi. I love all that shit because I like that these kids are young and they're going for it. Maybe, the baby is awesome. Like these there's so many guys that are like doing their thing that I like, I could get down with, even though I'm like probably not the demographic maybe, or, necessarily who you would expect to listen to it. If it's good music, it's good music. I don't care when it's from, it could be from the 1950s or it could be from, 2020. It doesn't have to be like from a certain block. And,
True.
It's funny because Tommy is a musician also. He's an artist all around, Tommy. And as a musician, he can be very critical of music, but then also he's open to just listening to all these different things. But where he has a block is mostly in rap music because he loves old school rap, but he really doesn't even want to give any of this new stuff a chance. We always bust his chops to try to get him to listen to new stuff.
Yeah, what I've been sort of, figuring out is there's a lot of new songs and new artists that they figure out how to successfully make a new sound off of old stuff. Like,
oh yeah.
Like, and it's like, I'm talking like some real underground people, but I mean, I could give a couple bigger examples, but like Soulze, I don't know if you heard of him.
Yep. I know who he is. I know. I've heard. My son talks about him. You know what I mean?
I've interviewed him.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's good.
You know Soulze? Yeah, that's awesome. And
again, like by osmosis, you know what I mean? Like by just being around and by hearing people talking about stuff, I'm like, I'll check that out, and I'm like, oh shit, that's pretty cool. Like,
Yeah, man. Like, and also, and this guy isn't new, but he's new. The group is new, but Inspector Deck formed a group called Czarface.
Oh, I mean, Czarface has been around for a bit. I mean, that's an old school group. MF Doom was part of that, like who just passed away. I mean, oh,
Yeah.
so you're up on it. You get it.
Yeah, I just like. I'm saying. What do you think about Freddie Dredd?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's good as well because he's in the same music group as Soulsave, which is Doom
Yeah.
Shop. Shout out to Doom Shop. They're awesome. Adam the Shinobi, Jay Green, Lil Woofy Wolf, Nemesis, a lot of Schema Posse people. Craig Zen, Ramirez. Let me think who else. I'm pulling up my playlist.
Yeah, I mean, like I like a lot of the more like and again, how I come across this music is usually through pop methods or whatever it is, whether it be kids sharing, people sharing TikTok videos or this or that or whatever it is. But when you hear a song, you're like, oh shit, that's kind of catchy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like that kid Ji, the Prince. Like he's
Yes.
fucking dope. I like Jack Harlow. Like
Yes.
he's
Did you
so
hear
many so
what
many
songs
great
from
like
him have
little.
you heard of Jack Harlow?
Well, what happened was when I first heard "What's Poppin'," that was the song that I heard, and I was like, "Oh, this kid's fucking dope." So I went on Spotify and I was like, "All right, let me see what they have," and they didn't have much. So they had like the "This Is Jack Harlow" pot, like whatever, like the channel, and you can listen to whatever they had on their platform at the time. And I was like, "Oh, I was impressed with everything I heard." I was like, "Okay, there's like 5 songs on here, whatever it was." It was a couple of years ago. And since then, it's just like, all right, whenever he pops up, I'm like, all right, I'll instantly check for him. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I know he's a good rapper. I know he makes good musical
Yeah.
choices. I don't know. It's just like, and part of what music is for me, not for everybody, but for me, is pop culture. It's about the moment. It's about what the young people are listening to, what makes people dance in clubs. Not anymore, obviously, because we're fucking stuck in our houses. But but like at a party, you know what I mean? Like the song that you put
With
on
people in community.
the
Um,
song that you put on in your backyard with 20 people and everybody stops and is like, yes, like thank God this came on,
yeah, but like if you
And
were to go to like 100, if you were to go to 5,000 years ago, who that is the man in around the campfire reciting a poem that he learned from his ancestors or playing some like instrument that is not fully formed. It's like I don't think anybody can ever like there's never going to be a day where music stops or culture
nah.
stops. Like it
Nah,
is
and
literally
I
yeah.
I think people can like what they like. That's cool. Like, there's no problem. Like there's plenty of shit that I don't like, but
Yeah.
it's not because it's new or it's not because it's out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
It's because I don't like it. Like and
Yeah.
maybe it's because I don't know enough about that genre or that artist. That could be it. I'll tell you an artist that's a kind of newer artist that got me really good is RMR. Rumor RMR. I don't know however you guys want to say it. I've heard it said both ways,
Yeah.
but he put out his first single a couple years ago, whatever it was, and I was like, this is kind of shitty. He's wearing this fucking mask. He's kind of corny. Like, like it was like, all right, I didn't really dig it. And then I heard he did the Rascal Flats cover, which he turned into a rap song, which I was like, well, right away, I was like, that's impressive, Cool, all
Yeah.
right, no problem. Then he dropped his EP. He had like 8 or 9 songs. And I was like, this is fucking incredible. Like, this kid is incredible. I thought that was my favorite piece of music for that year that got released that year, like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, whatever it was. I can't tell. I don't have any concept of time anymore since I've been locked in my house for a full year.
Yeah.
But that piece of music, that 8-track thing, that
Yeah.
EP that he put out is perfect. And like I went from like this kid's a fucking cornball to being like I fucking can't wait to see what he does next. And then at the time I actually sent it to my son who hadn't heard it yet. And he was like, I don't know. And I was like, yeah, because that's their first song. I was like, but listen to the whole thing. And now he's a big fan and like he's super popular now. He's fucking, he's popped off. And I'm like, he's a good artist.
That's how I feel about that's how I felt about MF Doom when I first heard him. Believe it or not, I originally did not like it, and then I grew to like love it so much.
Yeah, you got to give it some time too. I mean, he did so many different projects and so many different styles through the years. I mean, that guy's been around since the fucking late 80s. Like that's
Yeah,
even for me. I'm fucking old as shit, and that's old for me. You know what I mean? Like he
yeah.
was around. He was in groups in the 80s and
Yeah.
early
What was
90s.
it?
You know, so
KMT?
KMD, yeah, of course.
KMD.
So I mean, the gas face. Oh god, amazing. You know, he's on the the guys from KMD are on the third base record. That's his brother passed away. It's I mean, and for him to die, it's just like, ah, fuck. Because at least he was still making music. He was still relevant. You know,
I feel
there's
like if
there's
anybody's gonna release a posthumous whatever, however the fuck you say, he's gonna it's gonna be if anyone that releases an album that releases after their death, his is gonna be actually really good because usually most of them are really unfinished, not well done. And you look at like an XXXTentacion album that released after he died, they're not really well done, they're not really well polished. But I think that MF Doom's is gonna be like a really good album that
probably
really
has like
released.
fucking 300 songs on fucking record already. You know what I mean? Like this guy's been recording songs literally since before you were born.
Yeah.
So I mean, like you're gonna tell me he didn't have 50 songs finished? Come on, of course he did. You know, so of course they're gonna be awesome. Like like
for how it's structured. Too.
you mentioned X. X is a guy who died the afternoon he went to a store. You know what I mean? Like that guy, he didn't know what he was gonna do the next day of his life. So of course that shit's unfinished. He had maybe some vocals laid down. It's a mess, you
But
know?
also he's half of his way, half years,
Yeah,
halfway less younger than half
100%.
of MF Doom's age. Fuck, you know what I mean?
Of course. And again, like at that level, he put out good music. X put out whatever he put out. But
He was influential though with the whole sad boy.
He was
stuff.
working. He was currently working. This guy is a career musician. This guy's been a musician for 30 years. So of course he has shit recorded. So I'm with you. I can't wait to see the stuff that comes out. I mean, I would like to see it come out with him doing it.
Yes.
Of course. I mean, but so it goes. That's the way it is.
Yeah. Shout out to my friend Drew for recommending MF Doom to me because he recommended him to me after I started enjoying Freddie Gibbs. Shout out to Freddie Gibbs. He is amazing. And are you a fan of him?
I do know who he is. I mean, I know some of his songs and everything like that. I wouldn't go so far as to say I'm a fan because I don't know enough. You know what I mean? But he's definitely a name that I've heard and definitely somebody I've heard on stuff.
So I assume you like Mad Villainy and how it was made with Mad Lib and so Freddie Gibbs is what's called his classic album is Pinata, which is made with Mad Lib. And I would
That big extended family of fucking artists. It's like goes on forever, you know?
yeah, so I would definitely recommend if you were just to pick one thing to listen to with for Freddie Gibbs, I would say Pinata would be that. But two others would be
Put it on my list right now.
yeah, two others would be Alfredo, which came out last year, and which was with The Alchemist, by the way,
Love.
legendary producer, and then
And
I don't
partner
know.
of
There's Bandana as well, but I'd say Fetty is better, which is with Currency. But
yeah. So I'm looking at it right now. I got all of these on my Spotify. I'm gonna put them on. I mean, like for me, music is like it's a never-ending thing. It's awesome. It's like no matter how much you consume, you could always find more. And
Yeah.
if you ever felt like you ran out of something, just switch genres and then you start
Right.
all over again. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, oh, it's like I feel like I'm burnt out on rap music. Like, okay, cool. Like, go listen to reggae. I feel like I'm burnt out on reggae. Like, go listen to fucking pop music. Like, there's
burnt
a
out
lot
on
of
pop.
good.
Go listen to punk rock.
Yeah,
Listen to
or
some
fucking
Dead Kennedys, some Agent Orange.
exactly. Like there's like people who know me, they know me as someone who grew up. I've always been like a hip hop guy. I love hip hop, whatever it is, but I also have a lot of rock and heavy metal influences in my early life from adults in my life. And so a lot of people don't see that in me, or never saw that in me. And then when they hear that, they're like, get the fuck out of here. Like, you listen to Suicidal Tendencies, or you listen to Iron Maiden, or like whatever. And I'm like,
Iron
yeah,
Maiden,
like,
yeah, dude.
but it's like, it's like, maybe it doesn't come across in like the way I look or the way I carry myself or whatever it is. But like, yeah, definitely, so, I mean, that's one of the benefits of growing up. When I grew up, like the MTV generation, 80s, 90s, like it was more about liking music than it was, oh, I like hip hop, I like this.
Less
Like,
tribalism.
yeah, if it was good, and you felt it, you recorded that shit and you had it in your personal collection. It was in your Walkman. It was in your fucking personal space. So it was less like, oh, look, I put it on my social media and everybody's going to know I put it there, so they're going to associate me with this music. It was what was in your two headphones. And like, you could walk around listening to the heaviest of heavy metal, but look like you were the hip hop kids, and like nobody would know, nobody would be the wiser to what was going on in those headphones. But like, if I put it on Facebook, like, oh, a Slipknot fucking video, then people could be like, huh? This guy likes heavy metal,
Yeah.
like, or if I put like Ghost, I love Ghost. Ghost is like a band that I love. It's like theatrical
I thought you
heavy
were gonna say
metal.
Ghost Man.
No, but like if I put up like a Ghost video on my page, people would be like, yeah, these guys fucking, they're in makeup and they're in this like crazy horror effects and they're playing this like heavy rock opera, heavy metal like style from the 80s. And I'm like, yeah, but they're fucking dope. But like, if I had those in my headphones in like 1993, nobody would fucking know. They'd be like, oh, he must be listening to Run DMC or some shit. You know what I mean? Like, all right, whatever. He's cool.
Vanilla Ice, yeah. Yeah, what was I gonna say about metal and stuff? But yeah, so what's good about rap nowadays is that there's the why I think rap is like kind of why rap is always and has been my favorite genre is the reason I say that it's my favorite genre is because you're able to combine all these different genres in so many different formats in rap. You have there is rock rap fuses. I feel like rap has the most diversity in terms of musical style and aesthetic out of any genre. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because that's the thing that always people reflected on, and why rap wouldn't last, because it wasn't original and there was no talent involved in it. Like, if you go back and you watch like these early critics of rap music in the early 80s and the mid 80s and the 90s even, I mean, people are like, oh, these fucking guys, they're just stealing other people's music and they have no talent and whatever. And like, I think it took artists like the Beastie Boys, on Paul's Boutique, Prince Paul, the producer, to fucking show RZA from Wu-Tang, these people who were sampling DJ Premier, you know what I mean? Like these guys who like are just so good at sampling and changing what you have into a new thing that is now the thing, the iconic thing.
And Kanye, though, we always gotta shout
Yeah,
out
well,
Kanye.
no, I mean, definitely the next generation grew up on those guys. So Just Blaze, Kanye.
Kanye, though, he was like in the late '90s, though. That's what people don't know.
Yeah, he's
Nobody
a little bit.
knew him, but
No, and he's a little bit later down the road. And definitely, I came up, I knew him as a producer on that album on Hard Knock Life Volume 2 or whatever. Like I knew he was a talent, and he was someone to be reckoned with from his first album. But the idea of like, you're not even doing anything worth musician credit.
yeah, that
Such an asshole comment. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, now it's good. The one thing I will say that's good to hear is the acceptance of it. and
Yes.
also the whether you fucking like it or not, it's here. Like kick you right in the nuts. Like you can't get away from it. It's in fucking old Navy commercials. It's in, you know what I mean? It's in
Yeah.
greeting cards. At this point, Run DMC is just as fucking recognizable as the Rolling Stones. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like if you said those guys in that leather outfit with the Adidas, everybody knows who the fuck you're talking about. The same way they know who you're talking about when you say Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones. So
Yeah. But there's
I
this.
mean, to me, I'm glad that I've reached that point. I'm glad that it happened in my
You've seen it.
lifetime.
You've seen it.
Yeah,
You've
yeah.
observed, and you're proud to have observed that. But what I also say about rap is that there's these crowds of people who like really mainly listen to like that alternative rock and like really hardcore type of stuff, and they dress the way their artists look, but they also can appreciate some Lil Peep or artists like Juice or something. They can appreciate that, and I just love to see that they'll show or Tracy. They'll see that they are able to appreciate them as well as listen to what the main genre is as opposed to the genre fuse. They're able to fucking both of them beautiful, and it's harmony. It's really harmony. It's cooperation. Hip hop is really cooperation, I'd say.
I feel like at this point in the journey of hip hop, at this point, it transcends race, it transcends culture, it transcends everything. Whereas, like, someone who looks a certain way or acts a certain way can still make hip hop. As long as they're true to themselves and as long as they're not trying to fake what they're trying to do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would be the same thing no matter what color they were, no matter what age they were. It wouldn't matter. At this point, hip hop is 50 years old. You know what I mean? So wait, 40 years old, 45 years old, like late 70s, you start getting the real roots of hip hop. By the mid 80s, hip hop is gigantic. 1984, the biggest rock band in America, Aerosmith, is making a record with Run DMC. And not because Run DMC wants to, because Aerosmith wants to.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 40 years ago, bro. You know what I mean? Like at this point, it transcends, all kinds of racial barriers and things like that. Now, with that being said, there's still a right way and a wrong way to do things, And there are some artists that I'm just like, even though they might make music that I'm like, it's kind of vibe. I like that. I like the way they sound. Just don't do too much. Just kind of get in your lane and enjoy it, whatever it is.
Who are you talking about if you want to share that information?
Well, like I mean, like I always felt like even before all the nonsense and all the bullshit with 6ix9ine, I always felt like it was like, as much as he's like a goofy, fun, like party rapper, you know what I mean? And I felt the vibe in that whole, he was like just this jump around, good time guy, like that's what you got from his music. It was like you could play it and just go silly at a party, like whatever it was. But it was always just like too much. Like he was always doing too much. I always felt he was doing too much. Long before all the rat nonsense and all the bullshit, I always felt like it was just too much.
I feel like what would have been cool for 6ix9ine is if he would have stayed underground with the Zilla Kami and Sauce Mullah, then he would have been an underground. He would have been an underground king. He would have had a cult fan base.
Completely different sound than everything that came out on like once he became a studio.
Yeah, because there's a certain element to being in the studio with those big artists. You want to make a song with, no disrespect to anybody I'm about to mention, but you want to make those pop rap songs with Tory and all of them. I love Tory Lanez, but Nicki, yes, exactly. But imagine if you were staying underground. Imagine if you were to make songs with like Zilla Kami and get that good production from these underground New York people, where he would be in these trap metal fuse, because he kind of birthed that and sort of sparked the popularity for that. So people, when they stopped listening to 6ix9ine, they started listening to Zilla Kami and City Morgue, way more, and appreciating that. And that's just why I love that I'm gonna be honest. I love 6ix9ine's like music videos as well. When you look at them, like in a while ago, and I love City Morgue's music videos. They're crazy. Like people are riding skateboards that are with gasoline on fire and stuff. And it's like,
Yeah, just doing wild shit. Just being kids, doing wild shit, which is cool. Like I totally vibe with that. But like what I don't understand is the whole idea of like giving that up. Like if that's your thing, like that was like part of the charm of an artist like MF Doom is for fucking 30 years he was like, fuck you. I'm going to do me. People told him a million times, get in a lane and you'll succeed. He's talented. He's super talented. You know what I mean? Like nobody's fucking debating that. But he was like, nah, I'm good. I'm going to fucking make a superhero alter ego album in the fucking 90s when everybody hates comic books.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he traced the fucking mad villain face off of a television, off of a tape that he had of Doctor Doom. He traced that and then said, now make the artwork for the album off of this. When nobody gave a fuck about comic books. Right now, he'd be like, oh, this guy's a genius. Like, oh, everybody loves fucking comic books. Like, of course, Doctor Doom.
Yeah, but in the 90s, there was, they sort of overprinted comic books, and there was this sort of, like, fatigue and all that, right?
I lived it, bro. Trust me.
Everybody bought, like, the #1 issue of something and all that, and Venom #1.
I got 70 issues of The Death of Superman in my basement. That'll explain it to you,
No, my dad has one of them.
They're worth about 30 cents a piece. Because they printed 10 million copies of it, like.
But listen, if he would have just died there and never came back,
then we would have been all right? But we're not. So that's why I'm on a podcast with you right now instead of Ryan Seacrest, unfortunately. Because I would be worth about $1 billion. I have so many fucking copies in my basement, mint, gorgeous, but they're worth about $1 a piece. So
yeah, you ever look at them and think of the thrill when you didn't know that they weren't worth anything?
Yeah, but also there was no risk. They were fucking 75 cents. They were $1. You know what I mean? Like I was buying them 5 at a time with spare cash. Like it wasn't like now. Like when I'm still a comic collector. I love comics. I'll never not love comics, right? But now I mostly collect graphic novels and collections because I don't have this fucking space. Like I have 6,000, 7,000 comics in my collection. It's a lot of fucking comics, like where are you putting all this shit? Number one. And then number two, am I even going to like this? Is it even going to be something I want to keep reading? Like, so most of the time I kind of wait for it to be collected, buy one book. And, if I like it, okay, I'll buy the next one. If I don't, then I fucking get rid of it. So there was a time and a place in my life where I didn't have that collection and I didn't have any expenses or cares in the world. And it was like someone handed you a $20 bill and said, here, take this $20. And you were like, holy shit, this is totally expendable money. And this is 15 copies of Spawn #1 or something like that. You know what I mean?
At least the Spawn #1 would probably be worth something because Spawn is awesome. What? No.
But again, worth more than $1, sure. But like the point being, now you go to the comic store, a comic's $5. That's an investment for 20 pages for one fucking issue. $5.
That's why I usually wait for like a giant graphic novel of 7 issues. You have to,
especially because you don't know if you're gonna even like it. Like I can't tell you if something's gonna be good or not good. I would never judge something until it's finished, because I always give people the benefit of the doubt.
What do you think about this though? I gotta ask you though about what if instead of comics only being distributed to comic book stores, they were distributed to newsstands, gas stations, and all of that, and Walmarts and all that. Like they used, didn't they? I assume they used to do that, but
yes, they did.
What if they did that now? Like why don't they do that? I feel like there'd be a larger audience for it. Maybe if they did that now.
I think it would. It's hard. It's hard because I grew up in the first generation of comic book stores. Whole businesses dedicated to comic books and trading cards and the like things like that, merchandise, fucking t-shirts, whatever, whatever they sell at your local comic shop. We were that
Captain Blue
first
him.
generation.
Yeah.
We were that first generation to have this like mom and pop store pop up in your neighborhood, and you were like, holy shit. Like, I could buy a pack of Topps baseball cards, a fucking an issue of Amazing Spider-Man, and get a Batman T-shirt for $15 and be out the door. Like, this place is Toys R Us. This place is, this is the greatest place on earth.
Yeah.
What I think happened was the internet, oversaturation, being able to get stuff everywhere, and then the whole idea of like, is it even worth reading until we know it's worth reading, till something landmark happens, till something great happens, and then we're like, oh shit, I gotta read that. you
Yeah.
know so like, I don't know, do you read current comics? You read a lot of current comics?
It really not as much as I read older comics, but
Okay. I mean, you could be honest. So
but
to me, the best current comic on Marvel Comics right now, right? The best current comic is Immortal Hulk. Fucking
yeah,
comic. It's amazing, right?
correct.
But
Yeah.
guess what? It's 4 years old. When I started reading it, when it first came out, I was like, man, this is fucking great. But everybody was on it. Everybody thought it was great. They were like, "Oh, this is the best." Da, da, da. You know what everybody's saying now? It's getting kind of corny now. It's getting old now. Why? They're 50 issues in. Of course, it's getting kind of watered. You want the next thing. It's like drugs. You don't know. You want the next big fucking thing. So, I mean, I'm happy that it exists. I think it's the star of their line right now. I think it's the best comic that Marvel's putting out. But can they put out another comic next week that would fucking take the place of it? Absolutely. People have no faith. People people are like, I guess this sucks now, so nothing's ever going to be good ever again. It's like, why? They constantly put out good stuff.
Yeah.
That comic is only 4 years old. To me, I think it's fucking one of the best Hulk series ever. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my experience from it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I want to ask though, and it'll also help me mention something I enjoy in terms of the comics. But what non-Marvel or DC comics do you like?
All right. So I grew up in the Image era. I grew up when Image started. You know what I mean? When all those fucking guys said "fuck you" to Marvel and DC, and they bounced and they went and they all started their own creator-owned books. So Spawn, Savage Dragon, the Max, Wetworks,
Bloodshot.
Jim Lee's Wildcats. Those are all Image. Those first Image titles, right? So Spawn was Todd McFarlane.
Yeah.
Savage Dragon is Eric Larson. He was the CEO of Image for a long time and the publisher, and he still does Savage Dragon to this day. Wildcats is Jim Lee from DC Comics. Like everybody knows Jim Lee from Batman and everything DC. He was the editor in chief of DC. But he left to go do Wildcats, which was awesome. Rob Liefeld did Youngblood, and Sam Keith was an artist that did Max, and all of those comics. And Weiss Portacio did Wetworks.
Yeah.
All of those comics, when I was fucking younger than you, 14-ish, blew my mind. Like, I was like, holy shit. It doesn't have to be Captain America and Batman. Like, it could be other things. And the fact that I'm sitting here talking to you and most of that company is still thriving right now, obviously because of The Walking Dead, obviously because of other things, but those, Spawn and Savage Dragon are still running. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
My favorite like big book is probably Sandman, Neil Gaiman.
Yeah.
technically it's DC, but Vertigo, not really. You know what I mean? So that's my favorite, probably my favorite series,
Yeah.
outside of like the big publishers. But I
Yeah.
do love all that 90s image shit. It's bad as it is, and as many copies as there are in the world, and as not valuable they are, still pretty fucking cool.
Yeah. I'd have to say mine would be Hellboy.
Just in quarantine, I did a full deep dive into the whole Hellboy. I had read stuff here or there. I got like a reading list, and I fucking downloaded a ton of shit, and I read like, maybe I'm like about halfway through
So you
of the
didn't do the
whole.
graphic novel way where you read like volume one, two, three,
I
four.
followed the reading order in the chronological order of the universe. So like somebody took the time to put it together the right way to read it, so that no matter when it was released, it's like if this took place before this, you would read this first, you know? And I'm like 3/4 of the way through. I've always loved the character. He's fucking awesome.
Yeah,
And
he's
the
my favorite
support.
comic book character that I've like. I never really cared for the movies. The only really good one was the first one, and the animated show was kind of it was alright. Like, but
Sword of Storms, right? And the other one.
the
What was it?
first movie though is like a really good movie,
Spot
really good,
on.
great movie, and man, like I want to make a Hellboy movie series. Like that shit pissed me off. Like the way they haven't gotten a good three. It's not that hard to make three good movies based on Hellboy. Like I don't know why they haven't done it right. Like I'm gonna do that. So I'm
Well,
just gonna fucking do it
the
because one
first
day,
one I
you know.
thought was fantastic, like you
Yeah.
said. And then the second one, the studio started getting involved and saying, like, do it like this, do it like that. It was just too early. They were just ahead of the curve. Right now, they would let them do whatever they want. You know what I mean? Like, if they had a big hit with number one, they would just be like, just do it again. Go do it again. So I really, truly feel like that would be different now. They never got a chance to make the third one, which I thought could have redeemed them maybe, and maybe had a good chance at it. The newer one, I didn't mind it. It's okay. It's just okay. It's not great. It's just
But the
okay.
story, but like when you read the story that it's from,
Yeah.
it's
Like,
so good. The what's they called? The witch, the wild hunt,
yeah, the Baba Yaga,
the
yeah,
witch
that,
girl.
yeah.
Like she's so like who's the girl with the red hair? Isn't her name like Alice or something like that?
Yeah, yeah.
She's a great character, and also how it plays off of the whole Irish and English folklore and the fairies, and it's so dope. Like yeah.
I always wanted to see them do the Conqueror Worm. That's my favorite like storyline in there. Like
Wait, wait,
that
wait!
one.
Is that
And
which one is that? There's like a robot or something? Or...
no, that's the one where it's like constantly regenerating, like this like demon worm character like in the castle.
Oh yeah, and
But
there's I want to
but
rewatch. I want to
but
reread
I
them.
also I also love the wolves of Saint August. The wolves of Saint August. I looked it up. That's the one that I like. The werewolf story.
Oh
This
yeah, the old town in Europe or something.
yes, and like the whole idea that there's this like this fucking creature that's killing these people, and the people are just okay with it because it's been going on for generations. Like there's so many stories in there, but that's what he's really good at. Mike Mignola is really good at is like mining classic mythology for modern stories, which is kind of awesome. You know what I mean? Like he's telling these stories in the 2000s, but he's using, like you said, Irish mythology, Norse
But when it comes to
mythology.
music, you can't do that though, right? People will be like, "Oh, you're just taking something from you're sampling that song, like really, bro, really?" And it's like, yeah, sure, let them do like really. Come on now. It's
But if you do it, you got to kick it like directly in the balls. Like I said, RMR, that idea of him doing that Rascal Flats song, like he
yeah.
didn't just go sample a song, he sampled a country song from 1996.
Yeah.
Like that's fucking crazy. He wasn't even alive when that song came out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to me, it's like, if you're going to do it, be creative and go, like I said, kick it in the nuts, like do it, go all
Yeah.
the way with it. And
For sure.
to me, Neil Gaiman, Mike Mignola, those guys are successful doing mythology, right? Because they put their own spin on it. That's why Jack Kirby was successful at it, because he put his own spin on it. It's not accurate. It's not 100% correct. If you look at all the Thor stuff that Jack Kirby did with Marvel, it's not fucking by the book Norse mythology. But guess what? It's close enough, and it's fucking cool as shit.
And it also makes me like go back and read about like old mythology and makes me get interested. Like, and my theory with all the Norse, all gods and all these giant like mythology, I would start to think about like aliens and stuff. And then when you actually in some comic book universes have it that most gods are from different planets or stuff like that, and how certain even the Assassin's Creed video games, that story is kind of scary to me how real it could be. You know what I'm talking about, though.
Yeah, and it started off like kind of bullshit. Like it was like, all right, there's this machine, and then you could go back in time. All right, great. And then like as the mythology built through the years, and I fell off. I don't play as much as I used to, but I know I played the first 2 or 3 religiously. But like, and especially as a history teacher, I love like all the historical backdrops and everything like that.
Out of all the teachers you could have been, your history teacher. That's like the greatest. That's like the Hail Mary of all good teachers that I like.
That's awesome because you get to talk about fun shit all the time.
Dude, like that is, if I were to be a teacher, which I might be, who knows? That would be outstanding. And your favorite teacher is what I'm saying, bro. So,
but it's funny because
that. Right.
When I used to play those games, like all I would think about would be like, this is so fucking cool. I'm playing, I'm in I'm in Rome in the fucking 1600s or whatever it is. I'm with the Knights Templar and like all this different shit going on.
Yeah. And as a conspiracy theorist, I love that too. How they put in the whole Knights Templar and all that as well.
But then like the game started getting, and I was like, this is getting a little fucking close to home. Like this could be real. Like this is a thing that like I could totally understand, and it would make perfect sense on how it could kind of like work. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
how like the whole like Adam and Eve thing, and how it was like 75,000 years ago, and humans were created to be slaves to this giant alien, not alien, but
otherworldly,
other race on the earth that's like 20 feet larger than humans. And people say, like, I don't know, like, the conspiracy theories is that, like, you ever heard of gotten into Hollow Earth theory?
Oh, of course, with the lizard people and all that shit.
I look at conspiracy theories the same way I look at comic books.
Exactly.
Like, I don't look at it as, like, I'm an archaeologist, I'm a historian. No, I don't have a degree in history or whatever it is. I am just a guy on a computer having fun reading stories, just like how I am when I'm reading a comic book story, right? That's a good mentality to have. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I would also say a lot of stuff that people don't know, when they find out it's true, they're like, yeah? Really? Like, like when you find out something genuinely that you had no fucking idea about, it's probably like, it's mind blowing. It happens to me all the time, right? Like I'll be like, wait, what?
Like when you find out that there was they found traces of Australian DNA in Native Americans or something like that in like South America.
Or like every year I teach ancient Egypt, and you're like, okay, cool. So you try to explain how you built the pyramids with no tools. All right, I'll play along. Like, I'll play along. Like, I'll play along. You want to push the stone up a fucking hill? Like, yeah, okay, I'll play along. But what I won't play along with is the idea that every stone is perfectly carved into the exact same shape. And that every stone is fit into this puzzle pattern where you can't even fit a fucking playing card in between the stones. And I'm like, yo, they didn't even have hammers. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't even have, like, metal hammers.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, cool. I am not saying that I completely believe in like aliens dropping blocks into the pyramid. Like what the fuck do I know, right? But I'm also not saying that any of this shit makes sense.
I don't.
Like logically,
What,
it
what,
does not make sense.
I don't think you can all pin it on aliens. I think there is alternate theories to this. You look at Graham Hancock or somebody like that. I'm sure you're aware of Graham Hancock, are you?
Yes.
So
yes.
the water erosion on the Sphinx theory, on how potentially there was a more advanced human civilization that got wiped out due to a catastrophic event. There was traces of these people left behind, and one of those, and when they tried to sort of build new civilizations after this catastrophic event, what am I saying? The pyramids in Egypt, Sumer, they're a reflection of an ancient civilization.
You don't just do shit like that on accident. You know what I mean? Like to me, like I totally believe like there's a reason why when we drive through downtown Brooklyn, right? And there's this cool old bank building, and now it's a gym, right? This is true. This is in Park Slope. This exists. This is a thing. This like building that was on the corner in Park Slope. I think it's on like 8th Street or something like that, right? And it was an old-fashioned bank. And like old-fashioned banks looked like special buildings. They had these columns, and they were just like fucking fancy as shit compared to all the rest of the shitty buildings in Brooklyn, right?
Yeah.
And there's this like really cool fancy building. And what they did was they just kept it. It stopped being a bank. A gym bought it, and they just kept the outside exactly like it looked. And they called it the Vault.
That's dope.
Right? But what I'm saying is, you don't do that on accident. It's like, yo, I'm buying this piece of real estate, and it's fucking absurd, right? Isn't it really weird, you know? So what am I going to do? I'm going to fucking play it up. There was also a restaurant up in Westchester somewhere. I don't know exactly where it was, but one of my old girlfriends used to live up there. We used to go visit, and it was also in a bank.
Yeah.
And what they did was they created a special room in the vault, and you could like book that table for like a romantic, like whatever, and you were in the vault. And like, dude, that's you don't just, nobody's going to be like, hey, we got to build a restaurant. All right, let's make a vault room. Like, nobody's going to do that. It's like, if it exists already, it was somebody else's idea.
Something
And now
playing
you're just,
off of history is what you're referencing.
you're making the best of a bad situation. You're like, we got this fucking room. What are we going to do with it? Like, do we knock it all down and build it over? No.
What's that one place called in Turkey? Tebeklo Tepe, some shit like that. What is it? Tepe.
Where is it? In Turkey?
Like, I gotta go through my history or something. But it was like the first example of humans building things or something like that. It's not in Turkey. It was somewhere in Hungary or somewhere in like.
I would probably assume somewhere in Mesopotamia, right?
Not civilizations, but building something like
well, and then but you have these pyramids that are on the other side of the ocean, like in the Mayans and the Aztecs. They have their own pyramids, and they're kind of similar. And you're like, wait, why?
Göbekli Tepe.
Say that 3 times fast. No.
Yeah, Turkey. Where's Turkey near? Like.
Turkey's in the Middle East. It's smack in the Middle East, and everybody doesn't realize that. Everybody always thinks Turkey is in Europe, and it's in Asia. First of all, it's in Asia. It's an Asian country, number one. And number two, it's directly next to Iraq and Iran, and that's why it's so important to us.
Yeah. So
because that's where we have all our military bases.
Yeah. So this is what Göbekli Tepe is. It was a social or ritual site discovered by Klaus Schmidt, dating to the 10th to 8th millennium BCE, during the first phase pre-pottery Neolithic, and at circles of massive T-shaped stone pillars were erected. The world's oldest known megaliths dated around 9,500 BC. And
that's old.
Yeah, and there's like 200 pillars and 20 circles that were hewn out of the local bedrock, and yeah, and it's just like maybe after
You
this.
can't say this stuff doesn't exist. We're looking at it. We're staring at it.
I'm
We
saying,
can
but
test
don't
it
you
and see
think
how old it is.
it's a bit older than it should be? That should be in Sumer, right? Why isn't it in the two Euphrates rivers, man? Right?
Yeah, well, it's because that's what we know up until this point, until someone finds something more. That's like how every other thing in history has ever been, you know? And as someone who studied history in college and made a career out of it, what happens is people are like, but we figured it out. It's like, no, you figured it out for now. And eventually someone else is going to figure out even more.
Imagine how much we would know if the Library of Alexandria was not burned down. Doesn't that sort of piss you off, low key, a little bit?
When the way I teach the Library of Alexandria is I say it was like the internet before the internet. Basically, They would confiscate anything that came into Egypt, any information that came into Egypt. If you were carrying a book, if you were carrying a fucking scroll, if you had something with your name written on it, they took it at the door. And it went to the library. They kept the original and you got a copy. They would copy it for you and give it back to you. Can you imagine that? It was like the internet before the internet.
I would be simultaneously fascinated and annoyed. right.
All the smartest people in the world moved there because they wanted to be there. You know, like people from other countries moved to Alexandria.
We need that. I mean, we might already have that in some small aspects, but we need.
You know, Mike. You know what I would compare it to, and I'm joking, but I'm not joking. But like, it's like the Creator House for TikTok, right?
You got a point.
So
you got a point.
So
or like,
like
LA
it's
in
like
the '90s for independent films.
Exactly. It's like, dude, you have this thing that's huge. TikTok is huge. I don't give a fuck. You like it, you don't like it. It's fucking gigantic, right? Okay, great. So someone is smart enough to realize the people who make the best content are going to make money. So why not pay $100,000 a month to put them up in a place, and they're going to generate $50 million a month, and we're going to take 10% of it. We're going to make $100 million a month, you know, whatever, $10 million a month. And it's going to cost us what? $100,000 to rent a mansion?
Right.
And you get to live it. I get to live in a mansion. We get to live in a fucking mansion and make our TikTok videos on the best cameras possible.
Yeah.
It's a win-win for everybody.
Give you, and if they're tied to a major organization, they'll slide you a pop star every now and then. Right.
Everybody wants to come see you, hang out with you. But why? Because you're in that place. You know, it's like, it exists. It's the kind of thing that people have been tapping into for years, like Motown. Barry Gordy started the label of Motown, and it became a destination. People there's a literal place. If you go to Detroit, there's a place where Motown Records was. If the Temptations, the Four Tops, Diana Ross, whoever recorded, they recorded in that fucking place. It wasn't done in New York or Chicago. It was there, you know? So there is something to that. It's the same idea. It's the same concept.
And Sundance, you know, right? Filmmakers. Or another example would be from anything for rap.
I would say, you know, like
Atlanta.
But what was the name of the studio in New York that was Premiere Studio? Give me a second. I'll think of it.
And I'll give you an LA example for rap as well after you got that figured out.
Yeah. Go ahead. No. Go ahead. Do it. Give me yours.
No Jumper. The podcast in LA. SoundCloud rappers would show up to the bike shop and they would just like freestyle in front of everybody. And they'd hope that Adam 22 would be there vlogging everything and potentially put them in the vlog or something, or like they'd and also they do the podcast in the back of the store, but it got robbed a bunch of times. But
I couldn't think of the name. D&D Studios is the studios that I'm talking about. They were located in New York through the through the 90s into the 2000s, and they even put out an album They put out an album called The Best of D&D Studios, which were the best songs recorded in D&D Studios. And the album it's incredible. Like it's just absolutely incredible. But D&D Studios was it was magic. It was like this collection of like you said, if I show up and I hang out here long enough, Fat Beats was another place in New York. It was a record shop in New York. And it was like, if I just go in there and spend the money buying records, but I'm here enough, by osmosis, I'm going to fucking bump into people and meet creative people. And there's hundreds of stories of guys who were like, yeah, I met him hanging out at Fat Beats, and it's like,
that's
really?
what Jack. That's what many people did in Atlanta. Atlanta obviously has a huge scene with Quality Control and Migos, and you also have the little Baby and Future and all of them all in Atlanta, Gucci, right? But what a lot of people did, like Trippie Redd, before he went to LA, he moved to Atlanta, right? Hopped in random studios, met Lil Wop. Lil Wop kind of helped him out, get him exposure. And then he met Pierre Bourne, right? And Playboi Carti. And then he met, all these people. And then Jack Harlow went to Atlanta, and then he met DJ Drama. And then he started making songs with Bryson Tiller, and then Sci-Hi the Prince, and yeah, and that's just how so Alexandria is a concept in a way, and that's fascinating.
It's definitely a blueprint. I mean, and I think people, I think we don't give people enough credit. I think people know that, you know what I mean? Like, people follow that format. It exists and it works. So you just need something to take off, and then you need to capitalize on it. And usually the people who have the most money can capitalize on it because they already have money. Yeah. So the creative people are beholden to the money because they don't have any, and they want it. And then if everything goes well, the creative people become the people with money. And then what do? The same fucking thing all over again. They don't support the arts. They do the same thing. You know what I mean? So it's the way it goes. If you make enough money to be the money guy, then you just care about making money. You're not facilitating the next big creative place. Well, I do think that shit that's coming out of the Creator House and TikTok, or stuff that's coming out of D&D Studios, or No Jumper, or wherever else you're talking about, is super creative. It's funded and funneled behind this machine. That if that didn't exist,
No Jumper was some guy. He owned a BMX bike shop, and then he started interviewing SoundCloud rappers out of the back of his shop. But yeah, it is a bit different when the label sets up an interview with him, as opposed to him meeting a friend from a friend from a friend. Like, that's what I want labels to hit, because I interview a lot of rappers. But I want labels to hit me up and be like, hey, could you interview someone? And, we'll slide you a couple bones for that, buddy. But, it's better when I interview someone that I know from this guy who knows. It's like this,
Yeah,
but imagine if some corporate entity set this up. It'd be like, who?
There's an expectation there, like there would be like, we're going to talk about this project that we're working on, and we're going to talk about, how much you think I'm great, because, like, you had me on your show. So obviously you think I'm great, right? Because I'm here. So like me and Tommy interview a lot of people on the Kirby show, and we've been blessed to like interview legendary comic people. Steve Rude. This guy is legendary. He won the first Jack Kirby award. They named an award after Jack Kirby, and Steve Rude won the first one. And Jack Kirby presented it to him back in the fucking 80s, And so this guy was like, yeah, I'll come on. I'll fucking do the podcast. And I'm like, what? Like, this is nuts. Like, I can't believe we're talking. We this week coming out, we're talking to Joseph Illidge. Joseph Illidge is the editor-in-chief of Heavy Metal Magazine right now.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? Like, this dude, he was an editor at DC. He's been an editor for years, but he's the editor-in-chief of Heavy Metal Magazine. Like, this huge thing. And he sat down with us to fuck around. He was like, yo, I'll give you an hour. And we were like, okay, cool. Next thing I know, it's 2.5 hours later. We were talking. We were having such a good time. He was so chill. He loved the whole vibe of it. But
Yeah.
like you said, why? Because it wasn't like, yo, you got a product coming out. Let us interview you. It was like, yo, we like you. We like your
Yeah.
work. Come on, man. Like, do it. And he was like, yeah, yeah, I'll do it. But like, he came on thinking it was going to be on some corporate shit. And next thing you know, we're all goofing around and having a good time. And it's 2 hours later. And I'm like, I got to go. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
whereas, you know, he was sitting there saying like, oh man, 1 hour only. That's it. You know, like, so it's kind of cool to like, to get those kind of people. Like so all of this also started from an Instagram page, the Jack Kirby Instagram page.
Oh yeah.
And that Jack Kirby page, I started that just because I liked sharing Jack's artwork. But whenever I would put his artwork out, or whenever I would see his artwork on Instagram, it would never have any information. Like, what fucking issue is this from? What year did this come out? Like, I want to go read this book right now. Like, tell me, help me. So I said, when I start the page, I was like, yo, I'm going to just load up info, issue number, fucking you'll be able to find this and no problem if it interests you, you know? So when quarantine first started, we get an inbox from Jeff Garlin from Curb Your Enthusiasm, right? Like, fucking Jeff Garlin is the voice of the unicorn in Toy Story, the father on the Goldbergs. Like, this guy he's fucking Jeff Garlin. Like, he's this legendary comedian. He's been around for 30 years. He inboxes us. And I'm like, nah, he's got the blue check, you know, like whatever. And I'm like, oh, he's like, yo, I'm a big comic fan. Your fucking page is great. So I was like, word? All right, cool. Let's see how this goes. So I'm like, hey, would you do our podcast? He's like, yeah, I'll do it next time I'm in New York. So we're like, wait, what? He's going to do it live with us? So, of course, this was last March. We were like, no big deal. What are we going to be locked out for a month? Right? Like, you know, like we're like, oh, he'll be here in the summer.
Shit.
We'll do this fucking podcast, no problem. After about a month, we were like, oh, this might be a little longer. So we hit him up. We're like, yo, can you do it, you know, via computer? At the time, we weren't even using Zoom yet. Zoom is so much better. We were using Anchor at the time. It sucks. But he was like, yo, call me. Here's my phone number. What? So we have this interview with Jeff Garlin on the podcast for an hour and a half where we just talk comics with fucking Jeff Garlin.
Yeah.
Why? Like, why did we get to interview Jeff Garlin?
Because
like,
comics, that's the answer.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. And because, like you said, because it's organic. It wasn't like his publicist would never set that up. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't benefit the Goldbergs in any way. That doesn't benefit Toy Story 4 in any way. It benefits him, the comic nerd that he is, and us, these guys that are putting out this thing that he enjoys. So he approached us. And I'm not saying that on some like, you know, like fathead shit, like where I'm like, oh man, he called me. Like, nah, he approached us because we would never even think to message him.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, that's why I like the Joe Rogan episodes where he has his friends on, as opposed to just big famous guy number 2. Like, you know.
Or when he has famous guy number 2 on, but famous guy number 2 doesn't have anything happening right now. He's just there.
Yeah.
Versus like, oh, I got a movie coming out next month, so that's why I'm on Joe Rogan. Versus like, oh, I have Johnny Depp on, but it's Johnny Depp just on a Thursday, you know, like or something like that.
If Kanye went on when he wasn't running for president, like imagine if Kanye went on when he released Ye or Life of Pablo, and he was able to like maybe not even when he releases something, like maybe
no, that's what I mean. I think it would be better when he's not, you know,
or yeah, but also when he has his comedian friends on, they're not really releasing anything anyways. Like they're just like doing
I agree. Those are the best episodes.
He like Duncan Trussell and Joey Diaz are the two best guests. I'd say Duncan Trussell is better than Joey as a guest, but Joey his own show is like I could compare it to Joe.
I don't listen to the show, but he's good. It's good. I'll check it out.
It's really it's really like, this might sound like stupid, but it's therapeutic, really. But he does always tell like a really good story. He was like, all right, so it's 1989 in Boulder, Colorado. I kidnapped this one, like, it's just like some story, like some horrible story. And then he talks about how it made him realize, get my head out of my ass. Why don't I do some more stand-up comedy? Why don't I approach this person, take a chance at the bar and approach this person? Like, he always turns it into some uplifting, beautiful tale.
My favorite episode of the Joe Rogan podcast, fucking what, 1,200 episodes at this point, right? Like, you know, like whatever it is.
1,600 actually.
And I've listened to a lot of them. Not all of them. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie. I'm not gonna sit here and lie and say, oh, I've been a listener since day one. Like, that's bullshit. But my favorite episode, and it doesn't even come close. Not even close. Alex Jones is the greatest guest in the history of the world.
Yeah, dude.
And why is Alex Jones great? Because here's this guy, this professional personality, right? That's what he is. He's an act. He's a personality, and he plays to his audience, right? But when he goes on that show, he's hanging out with his boy. They get fucked up, and he doesn't even know what he's talking about. He's just hanging out with his friends.
And then Eddie Bravo shows up.
Yeah, well, but that's what I'm saying. And it's like those two episodes, I think it's 2, maybe 3 times he's
The
been
one
on the
with
show.
Tim Dillon was really good as well.
With the psychic vampires, and he was talking about all the fucking
DMT
crazy with
elves.
the frogs, with the gay frogs, and like all the different shit, and the chemtrails, and like all I'm saying is, Alex Jones, not really a great guy, pretty much a deplorable human being to me. You know, like he's a piece of shit to me. But on that show, he was like, mask off, full me, hanging out with my boy, getting fucking drunk, smoked out of my face. Let's talk crazy shit. And it was good radio. You know, like I listened to it and I was like, man, this guy is captivating. And even though I'm not someone who listens to maybe Alex Jones' podcast or subscribes to his whole idea of thinking,
Yeah.
I instantly understood why somebody would.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he has this charming quality to him. When you factor in if he's saying what I want to hear.
Like he
Man.
says one of the most boldest sentences ever said by a person and just downplays it. And he's like, anyways. So he's like,
That's something he talks about all the time.
Like he'll just be like, so I remember this one time in high school I was dating this one girl and her father tried to get me in a satanic cult. Anyways, remember, have you heard about the gay frogs?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
and then
he's
Joe Rogan's
so
like,
quick
whoa, go. Oh, so go back. Why don't you talk about the girlfriend or something like that? Why don't you go back?
Yeah. And they're so far fucking gone, drunk and high by the time they get to those great moments. The episode's like 3 hours long. It's fucking great.
What's the longest episode? Because I think each of his episodes have been Alex Jones, Joe Rogan. Let me see how long.
Yeah, it's definitely my favorite guest, and not because I like him more than any other guest. He just
There's a 3-hour one, a 4-hour one.
yeah, he fucking kills, bro. He kills. And I said I think he was on twice. I don't think he was on 3 times. But to me, it's like some of the best that Joe Rogan has to offer, because I don't even think he's saying anything of value. I think they're just kind of spitting shit. Like at that point, they're just kind of having fun and they're talking and they're bouncing crazy shit off each other. But in the style that they're doing it in is very conversational. And it's not like, let me teach you something, I'm talking down to you. It's more like we're talking about it as peers, you know? And you feel like you're in the room and you're like, yeah, I'm part of this conversation.
Yeah, nobody should ever go to Joe Rogan looking to find information, like, and stuff.
No, it's entertainment.
Yeah. I mean, the only time you should ever take an episode seriously is when he has, like, a credible guest, like he will have. But even then, you should not really try and learn something. You should just, like, listen to what this person that is so credible would sound like in a normal conversation, as opposed to a lecture.
That is a very smart statement from a young man. But a lot of people that are older than you don't understand that. They're like, well, I like Joe Rogan, so Joe Rogan must be true all the time. Or I like Joe Rogan, so Joe Rogan must know better than the Surgeon General. No, not necessarily, you know. And also maybe the things that Joe Rogan did worked for Joe Rogan, but for you, they won't work, you know? So I know plenty of people who are functioning drug addicts that have been drug addicts for 20 plus years that do hard drugs and hold jobs and give the illusion of not being an addict. And I know people who have never touched a single drug in their life, right? And if you didn't know any better, you could never tell the fucking difference. You would meet people who are like these bugged out crazy people, and you're like, that guy must be a
So you're
fucking
saying you
drug
disagree with
addict.
Joe Rogan saying that it's like okay to get blasted on LSD?
Well,
Or
I see. I think he's saying what I think he's saying is for him it hasn't been bad, and he's probably not lying. I don't doubt him. You know what I mean? I don't think he's making it up. I think he's had great experiences. Tell that to the fucking guy who's in a psycho ward somewhere because he took one bad trip of acid and he never recovered. You know what I mean? Like, God
yeah.
bless him. He's made it all these years doing these crazy things and he's okay. You know,
I
like,
mean, what I see from him always talking about drugs is that he's in. I don't want to sound like, and I don't want to sound intelligent with this statement at all. But what I do want to say is that Joe Rogan is sort of this obsessive personality type, or he wants to listen to an audiobook every day. Like people would ask him what he's like in person, he's always listening to an audiobook and telling you to shut up. Like he's learning some book that he wants to learn about, and he's doing. And so I wouldn't surprise me that he'd like go and get some sensory deprivation tank and take something and think he's learning some information when really he's just like it's just a bunch of chemicals or whatever really. But he does, at least when he talks about those substances, he at least provides insight to the way the government responded to them at the time. When you learn about Hearst sort of bending this false narrative in the news about marijuana and grouping hemp with cannabis and stuff like that, which was an incorrect thing. That information is interesting to hear about, and how hemp was wrongfully like outlawed and stuff. But it's not an excuse. I don't like when people think that when he talks about it, he's trying to be intelligent. I don't think he is.
no, I think he's just giving you his life experience, and I think he's giving you his side of the story, how it's affected him. You know, I bet you if it kicked him in the nuts a bunch of times and he had terrible experiences, he would say it.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of guy he seems to be, right? He seems to be the kind of guy who would share his personal experiences. So two things that I'll recommend to you. There's a great documentary on HBO Max. Okay.
I have that. Yeah.
Okay. It's called the History of the Movies or the Movies or some shit like that, right? So each decade has its own episode. The like 1950s prior, then it's 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s, right? They're like an hour apiece. But if you watch the first episode, which is pre-1950s, what they talk about is how Charlie Chaplin and all these like silent movie stars and all this stuff was big, huge. People were fucking spending every dollar they can to go see these things. And then the guy invented talking movies, right? The talkies.
Yeah.
And the first screening, they showed the press clippings of what people said. And you know what everybody said? The death of the movie industry. Nobody wants to hear people talk at the movies. Yeah,
Oh my
okay.
God.
Asshole. Right? Like now it's 90 years later. Look at what we have, right? So that's one example of it. Another a movie that is just fantastic that talks about something that you dealt with. I don't know if you ever seen the movie Altered States. It's an 80s horror movie. I think it's William Hurt is the star of the movie. I want to double check just to make sure. Yeah, William Hurt is the star of the movie. It's just an amazing movie about sensory deprivation. It's just absolutely amazing. It's super stunning on how how it was done. It's done by this guy Ken Russell. Ken Russell is this like amazing visionary director from the 70s and the 80s. He made all these crazy fucking movies that people can't believe got made. Like he would get these studios to make these movies, and then when they were done, they'd be like, "What the fuck is this?" You know? He directed a movie called The Devils, and he directed this. It's just a great director. He's a fucking nut. But in this movie, this guy, this scientist, has this idea of like this tank that separates sensory deprivation. But what it does to him and how it affects the people in his reality, it's like this drama that builds from it, you know? And I truly, truly believe that certain people will have different experiences doing the same thing. So if me and you both did the same drug, we'd probably have a slightly different reaction.
I think the
And
same. What?
if we had the same reaction, maybe a third person would have a totally different. You know what I mean? Like it's not just one-on-one per se.
But the same incentive, the same want, the same need, the same greed to go into sensory deprivation tank or to find or experience with certain psychedelics as well. But I feel like that same want is the same like desire that a character in 2001: A Space Odyssey had when they're going through the universe looking for some like exploring and shit. I feel like humans, we like to venture out and try something different when sometimes we don't have to. Like we don't have to. Maybe we should just chill. You know?
I think all the time, I'm like, man, like my whole life I was always like, oh, like what's it gonna look like when I'm old and older. And you know what it looks like? Not much different than it did when I was 19. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if I flip my fucking like right next to me right here, like I'm like right next to my thing is just like it's just comics. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
what's right next to me, right next to my fucking my bed right now, like where I'm in my office on the bed is just comics and horror novels and the same shit that I was reading when I was 13. You know what I have now? More money to buy stuff.
Yeah.
So I could buy better stuff. You know what I mean? Like that's pretty much it. That's all that's changed. Nothing changed about me. I still dress the same I did when I was fucking 12. I'm still in a gray hoodie almost every day. Like that's me. That like anybody that knows me as that. So it's hilarious to me. Like I always wondered like what old Mike would look like. It's like it's fucking just old like I'm still 12-year-old Mike. It's the same thing.
Yeah, and the whole like flying cars and this, that, and the third, this weird utopia we always envision. It's like, okay, like what's that happens now? Like what? Like it's just when it happens, it's gonna be a slow. What I've been figuring out though is that when you're seeing history, because what we did is let's act in a weird way right now. We kind of just watched history, right? We watched history. We watched the pandemic go out. We watched Massive Panic. We watched Social Injustice. That was the most slow, boring experience. But a lot of people are going to look back and be like, what was it like? What was it like, Mikey? And then it's like, it was just a lot of being at home and staring at a screen.
Mike, real talk. When this pandemic started last March,
Yeah.
this technology that we're doing right now wasn't even on anybody's radar yet. You know that, right? Zoom existed, but only corporations were using Zoom. Regular fucking people like me and you weren't using Zoom.
Yeah.
Right? You know how I know? Because when we started looking for options to record the podcast virtually, Zoom didn't come up. It wasn't an option. Anchor, fucking all these other apps that people
but you're not
were
going to use
pitching.
Discord. That'd be
Yeah, but
funny.
they like all these apps that people were pitching, which they all suck balls, right? Absolutely. But all of a sudden, like my producer Rob was like, "Yo, his wife had a Zoom account because she's a corporate, and he's like, yo, I've been fucking around with this Zoom thing. Get it? It's $12 a month. You know what I mean? Like, fucking get it." And I was like, cool, all right. Next thing I know, we're recording video. We're doing, and you know what? I'm a teacher. I've been teaching on Zoom since last March.
Yeah.
And I teach fucking 25 minutes a period half the period every day, 5 times a day through Zoom. This technology did not exist last year. It existed. It wasn't being applied this way.
Yeah.
So the fact that me and you were having this conversation here so nonchalantly, like, oh, it's a Zoom link. I'm going to send it to you. Oh, cool. I'll just click it. I got my headphones and my mic ready. Like,
Yeah.
that's bananas. It's like 8, 9 months old, for a regular person. So as easy as it is to dismiss it as like, oh, we don't have flying cars, but we have this. This fucking came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's cool.
It's kind of impressive.
It's like, that is a different way of looking at it. But I think we can always trace that back to this thing that we humans don't like to acknowledge. We're always trying to focus on the individual, and really we're one large machine. That's not in a negative or positive sense. That's just the way things are. The head of the machine says, I have a new idea, and it's like it goes down and like everybody figures it out, and then it keeps on moving. It keeps on moving. It keeps on moving. And that's why we're always trying to innovate, is because it's like this constant machine that's moving to work together in order to get one person to get one thing, to get one thing, to get one thing. And yeah. Shout out to humans. Yeah. Now I want to talk about some films as well, if that's okay, if you still have time.
I love it. I talk about movies until fucking 3 a.m, whatever you want to do.
All right. So I was gonna talk about some comic book films, but I want to start off with a film that I just watched. This is one of those movies that it's one of the movies where everybody's like, "Oh, you gotta watch this. You gotta watch this." And I'm like, all right, and then they stop begging me to watch it, and then finally I take time and watch Lost in Translation. Have you seen this film?
Fantastic.
So, what was your thoughts like when you saw that?
So when that movie came out, I loved it right away, and the reason why I loved it, and looking back on it to this day, why I love it is because of Scarlett Johansson. She's fucking, you know what I mean? Like she's great in it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of early on in her leading lady days. She had been in some things, but that was kind of early on in like her being like the female lead. And I was like, she's a great actress. She's beautiful. Like I love everything about her. I've also she's been on my radar since Ghost World. I don't know if you ever saw Ghost World, but Ghost World is like a 90s movie that she was a teenager in, and she's just a smoke show as a teenager. I was about her age, give or take, when the movie came out. So I was like, man, this girl's, she's 16. I'm like 17, 18 at the time. I was like, man, this girl's fucking gorgeous. So I kind of grew up. She was like in my equal age group.
Same way, the way I look at the Stranger Things kids, or something.
Yes.
Like Millie Bob, whoever the
Billie
or
Eilish like
whoever's
what's
what's
her name? Wizards of Waverly Place, Selena Gomez. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a girl who at one point was 12 years old on television, and now she's a fucking woman making womanly things.
Yeah. And Sofia Coppola written directed that one, and I'd say the
Virgin
city was
Suicides and that were like those two movies. Like I was like, man, she fucking.
Oh no, I'm gonna trace this back to hip hop for like a little bit, but in the Virgin Suicides, one of the actors is Noah Shabib, and he was a child actor at the time. Noah Shabib went on to become 40, Drake's main producer, who produced Headlines and Miss Me, and he did the engineering on all of Drake's big tracks, started from the bottom, Pound Cake. All of Drake's huge, giant tracks in 40 is like probably one of my favorite producers ever, and how he popularized him and Drake sort of took over the world with Toronto, because before Drake nobody cared about Toronto in terms of rap. I mean, you might have known something, but
yeah, I mean, what's the guy's name? There was a rapper that was from up there. He had a song called Bacardi Slang. That was the name of the song. I'm drawing a blank. Hold on, I'll tell you the name of the artist. Cardinal Official. He was a 90s rapper from up there. He was the only fucking thing that I ever heard out of Toronto that I was like, cool, that guy could fucking.
But also
flow.
what I love about the whole Drake era, because I'm obsessed with Drake. Like I have a cardboard cutout of Drake. Is because like the whole Young Money era, like in 2009 to 2013, and I don't act like I don't hate new rap, but hear me out. when there is a balance of quality in lyrics and production that was innovative and different, but still had that they were able to find elements of older stuff, but not really. It was so innovative at the time, from 2009 to 2013. The quality and also the popularity of it at the same time was so well balanced and perfectly balanced. And also, I miss when everybody wore snapbacks and the 2012 stuff and all the corny like hats people wear in Vine and Flappy Bird. It's like how you might look at, like, I don't know,
the 90s.
yeah. I didn't want to say that, but you know.
No, it's all right. I'm old as fuck. It's okay. But you're telling the truth. You're not saying anything wrong. And again, like I said, so a dude that I grew up with sent me a picture on Facebook, right? He's like, yo, I found this picture of us when we were in 5th grade, right?
Yeah.
And he sends this picture. I'm like, cool, send it over. So he fucking sends it in my inbox. I open it up, and I'm wearing a fucking Jordan sweatsuit that I would buy today. Like, I was like, yo, I wish I could buy this today.
Yeah.
Like, I literally fast forwarded 30 years, and I was like, nope. I would literally, if that was in Champs right now, it would be copped instantly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like a fucking 2-piece Jordan sweatsuit with some Jordan 4s.
Champs is better than Foot Locker. I think, like, let's just put that out there.
Word, I would, like, I thought it was so, like, here's these 4 friends of mine wearing this, like, neon shit, and, like, who's wearing this other fucking crazy, weird, trendy outfit, and then here I am, I'm, like, in a gray and black fucking Jordan sweatsuit with Jordan 4s on, and I was like, is that a new picture? Because that could be me right now. That could be 2021 Mike D.
Yeah, you gotta send me that as well. I want to know what the homie here looks like back then.
Give me another one. I want to hear some of your questions about film. That interests me. Whenever I talk to somebody younger like you, I like to hear what they're thinking.
Well, did you ever care for Wes Anderson films when they were booming?
Yes. I like a lot of Wes Anderson stuff. There's not many films of his that I dislike. The Darling Limited is always the one that, like, people are like, it's okay. I kind of like that movie. I just recently watched Grand Budapest again.
I like his, like, 90s stuff. Like, in 2000, I think he had the I think he had the best 3-film run out of any director that I, like, really like. But, like,
which
out of, like, what I like, I'm saying one of the best 3-film runs is Bottle Rocket, Rushmore, and The Royal Tenenbaums.
Great, all weird as fuck, strange in their own way, which is weird because usually people are strange and they're in their way, right? Like Quentin Tarantino is strange with the feet shit, but that's it. Like he's a foot weirdo, and so he's gonna work that in, even if it doesn't fit into the movie. He finds a way to work it into the movie because that's his thing, you know. All 3 of those movies are weird and quirky in their own way.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. You know what I mean? Like, they're all Wes Anderson, and they have his fingerprints all over it, but they're all, like, weird in their own way. Like, Bottle Rocket is, like, such a fucking bizarre, like, small town caper type deal.
I love that movie. Like, it's just weird in, I don't want to say that word again because it's not really an original way to describe something for me, but, what's weird about Bottle Rocket is the calm energy to something that would be normally done in this dramatic way. Like, he makes things, it seems awkward when you watch it because if it was directed by someone else, how fast-paced and intense it would be. He brings this sort of relaxed attitude and makes things relaxing environment to something that's usually frowned upon or looked at as odd and not really good, not in terms of like what humans would do or is weird to people. Like for like Rushmore, he likes his teacher and stuff like that, and so he tries to get with the teacher, and then there's a love triangle with this other guy, Bill Murray, right? And then there's Royal Tenenbaums when he falls in love with his adopted sister. It's like, whoa, weirdo, like, okay. You're in New York.
That's what I mean. Like, it's like all these different quirks that one would be too quirky for anyone, you know, like one would be like, oh, you're fucking weird, right? And then he has multiple weirdnesses, which
Yeah, like
makes
the
him
kid
just
from
like
Rushmore is in like 85 clubs. Like,
so great. I mean, and like he hits on all the beats and he gets all the characterizations great. You know what I mean? And like I love Bill Murray in his movies specifically because he gets this performance out of Bill Murray that, you know, like Bill Murray's a fucking all-time great. He's in 100 movies that are amazing.
yeah,
But it's something
Zombieland.
that Wes Anderson does with Bill Murray that gets this like different thing out of him. And like, you know, The Life Aquatic is like, to me, when I watch that and Bill Murray, he just fucking kills me. Like that stupid red hat. And like just every single scene that he's in is just hilarious, you know? But like you said, calming, not forcing comedy, you know, not forcing the laughs. It's not slapstick, but it's fucking hilarious, you know?
Yeah.
And you're like, why am I laughing? This is so sad. This is so depressing. This is so shitty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like, but it's hilarious. You know, like it's almost humorous in a way.
Yeah, it's like when the character in Royal Tenenbaums, when he like slits his wrist and stuff like that. When everybody runs to the hospital and there's a dramatic scene when they all run to the hospital, they're all like, "Where is he?" And then the guy's like, "Who?" It's like
It's like this whole idea that there's like this serious thing happening, but it's surreal, and he presents it in a way that makes it kind of like, how do I make a suicide funny? You know, like you can't make the suicide funny with anybody that's in the immediate circle of the suicide, right? So you have to like involve this secondary character. I just recently rewatched True Romance. I don't know, have you ever seen True Romance?
no.
Okay,
I know
so
it's Tarantino's this film that he wrote, and
he wrote it, and it was directed by Tony Scott, brother of Ridley Scott. Tony Scott is a very credible director. He directed Top Gun, and he directed you know, a lot of other 80s and 90s movies. But True Romance is that kind of movie. It's very Wes Anderson in the sense of like all this bad shit is happening to this couple as they travel across the country. And Brad Pitt has a very early role in this movie. And there's a particular scene with Brad Pitt where he's like a stoner on a couch, right? And like these gangsters show up at the house and they're like, where the fuck is such and such or whatever? And he's like, look, man, I don't know why you guys are so stressed out. And like, he's like super, and like, they're like, they fucking pull out a gun and they're like, we're fucking serious. He's like, all right, man. All right. Like, I'll tell you. But like, I don't know why you got to be so mean, or like, you know, like, it's very Big Lebowski. It's very, you know, like Wes Anderson style, where it's like you're making funny out of a non-funny situation.
Yeah,
especially at that point in the movie, like the tension's high, you know.
Yeah, but the way it's written in like big Avengers movies is kind of like, they got like the writers on those movies that do
Community.
They do like real TV comedy. I don't think TV comedy should have been blended. Like, I'd want to see what a Wes Anderson or a Tarantino could do with like a superhero or something like that. But then again, I don't want to see them touch a major franchise, and I want them to
God
create
forbid
their own
it doesn't turn out right, you know, and that's why they don't do it.
Good for them, right? Like, and that's
I hate to break it to you. I hate to break it to you, but they're not stupid guys. If Quentin Tarantino did a Silver Surfer movie and it fucking flopped, people would be like, how the fuck did you fuck this up? You love the Silver Surfer. You put him in fucking Pulp Fiction, and you put
Reservoir
him in
Dogs.
And yeah, that's what I meant, Reservoir Dogs. And you put him in the Hunt for Red October. There's a whole thing where he rewrote a part of the script for the Hunt for Red October. There's a whole scene about the Silver Surfer in a fucking submarine movie, you know? And you fuck this up? You know what I mean? Like, hey, dickhead, what the fuck? It's like, well, not everybody's going to hit it out of the park. Maybe it's not for him. You know, Kevin Smith's another director that I love. And he owns comic book stores. His comic book store is in my area. That's my mom and pop. That's where I go. That's my comic book store. Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash is my comic book.
You go there?
It's the store that I go to. It's the closest comic store to me. And like part of me thinks, I'm sure he's been offered stuff, and he's probably like, what if I fuck this up? I'm the comic book guy. If I
Yeah.
fuck it up, you know, on one
Yeah.
hand, I'd be like, yo, I'd love to see a Kevin Smith fucking, Ant-Man movie.
Yeah, but I'd rather see two Kevin
Dope.
Smith characters talk about Ant-Man than a Kevin Smith Ant-Man movie,
And I
right?
think Kevin Smith would rather see that too, and that's why he hasn't
Yeah.
done an Ant-Man movie. So
Yeah. I
I was really looking forward to Edgar Wright doing Ant-Man. That was to me like I was like Edgar Wright would have done
at least
Ant-Man awesome.
at
I
least you
love
can
Peyton
get a
Reed.
sense of his screenplay because he did write contribute a lot to the screenplay, like
Yeah, of
the
course, of
flashback
course.
scenes and stuff like, or
Oh
whenever.
yeah, the whole Michael Pena thing,
Yeah.
that whole gimmick.
Yeah. Edgar
It's
Wright
right out of
is.
Shaun of the Dead, like right out of something from Hot Fuzz or something like that. You could see it.
I'm gonna give an unpopular opinion. Hot Fuzz is the best out of the Cornetto trilogy. Everybody says. I think that maybe that might be a popular opinion. I don't know, but I love Hot Fuzz.
I just watched it like 2 weeks ago. It's really good. At World's End, it's okay. It's just a fun movie. Shaun of the Dead is perfect.
I don't
It's
know.
perfect.
I
It's
don't.
perfect. It's a perfect movie. I could find nothing wrong with it. I've tried. I've tried to fucking. So I had an argument with somebody the other day. We were talking about Zombieland versus Shaun of the Dead, and I was like, it's not even close.
No, Shaun of the Dead. Yeah, Shaun of the Dead wins that. Shaun of the
And
Dead.
I love Zombieland, and he was like, you're fucking crazy. No
Woody
way. And I was
Harrelson
like,
was better in True Detective. That's his superior role.
of course.
True Detective.
But-
Have you seen True Detective?
Yeah, of course. But now what I did was I said, look, I'll prove a point to you, right? So I'm in a bunch of horror groups on Facebook, right? So I went into these horror groups and I said, A or B, Zombieland or Shaun of the Dead, pick. Bloody disgusting horror group, 60,000 members. Fangoria horror group, 60,000 members, whatever it was. Put it up there. It wasn't even fucking close.
It was a
there
poll?
Was not there was not one poll that was within 600 votes. Like it was like 2,000 to 200 for Zombieland versus Shaun of the Dead in every forum that we put it in. And I said to him, I said, look, bro, you just don't like Shaun of the Dead. Just admit it. You're a hater. That's cool. You could not like something, but most people will not find the flaw with that movie because it's
But
fucking
Zombieland
perfect.
is really good though. I like
It's
the scenes
fun.
about the Twinkies and the Bill
Fucking
Murray scene.
great.
I don't care. Everybody says Bill Murray was shitty in it. Like it was so
Great.
hilarious.
And even the culmination at the theme park was fucking fantastic. It was great. It was like they gave you all this action
They
and
lacked
adventure.
character when it came to zombies though. That's really what it came down to. Like
Well, that's
Shaun-
money. And I don't know if you saw the second one. Did you see the second one?
No.
Well, with the second one, they got a little bit more money, so they did a little bit more fun shit. I mean, it took a while to get it made, but it's a fun movie. It's definitely a fun movie. But to me, Shaun of the Dead is a real
And Jesse Eisenberg.
You
Yeah.
connect to those characters. Like Jesse Eisenberg and Woody Harrelson are dope as fuck. Emma Stone and I forget the other girl's name, Abigail Breslin. But you connect to Nick Frost.
Oh,
and
killing
you
like
connect
killing
to-
the parent or something like that with the mom's boyfriend or whatever.
Yeah, or
like,
when he gets the Jaguar and he pulls up for the first time and he's fucking spins the tires, and he's like, "What are you doing?" This is fucking great. Player one signing in, player signing out. He's like, "Oh, don't you have work today?" He like gets back up. I love that movie. I think it's perfect, but that's just me.
I love when it shows his like routine on the beginning and how it's so similar to when people like when he's doing the zombies happen. I just
Yeah, that whole attack already happened, and he doesn't even realize it. He goes to the store, he buys the fucking ice cream cone, he walks back, he's eating it. He doesn't even realize all the shit's happening around him. It's fucking hilarious,
yeah.
And the music choice is great. It's like, this really creepy, eerie, like something's going on music, and it's kind of dope. I don't know. I love that movie. That's
yeah.
a soft spot for me.
And when he sees the zombie girl and he's like, she's so drunk.
Yeah. Or even the kid who's kicking the soccer ball against the fence over and over again. And then like when he walks back, it's the kid's a zombie and like he just walks right past it. Like he's oblivious to the world that's a fucking, you know what I mean? Like these things are happening behind him. the fucking guy in the bodega was attacked, he just leaves the money on the counter and walks out. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't even realize there's blood smeared on the soda fucking machine and everything. And he's just like, here's the 25 cents. I'm leaving, you know, like he walks out of the door.
Yeah,
Fucking
that's
ridiculous.
I think Hot Fuzz is cool though from like a
Great story.
like it's like the obsessive attitude of the character I connect with. I like obsessive characters that are not villains that are obsessive, but heroes that are obsessive. Those are my type of characters. And I just like that. That's why I like Wes Anderson movies as well, because the characters are often so obsessed in their what we call quirks, you know.
I seen a good horror movie this year that was very reminiscent of Hot Fuzz.
Oh God, no!
So
I'm looking this up.
All right, so it's called The Wolf of Snow Hollow. Came out this year. Came out during quarantine. It was supposed to be like a movie release. It was supposed to go out, and it ended up on demand. I think I rented it for like $10 or something, like on VOD or whatever. It might be on Hulu or Prime now, but it's definitely somewhere, right? It's called The Wolf of Snow Hollow.
Yeah, it's on. You can purchase it on Amazon or something.
And basically, the story is it's like this little ski village, kind of like Hot Fuzz, this little village, and they got a police force, and the police force is an old man and his son, and that's pretty much it. Like there's like 3 cops in the whole town, and this murder happens there. And it's like a bad murder. Like fucking this woman gets like torn to pieces. And they're like, what the fuck could have done this? Like an animal? Like what? You know? And like people are joking around. They're like, maybe it's a werewolf, you know, like whatever. And this one cop, this young son cop, he's exactly like Simon Pegg in Hot Fuzz. He's like trying to do his job and do it the right way. And he's like, it's not a fucking werewolf. What's wrong with you people? Like, of course, I'm going to find this guy and I'm going to bring him I'm going to kill him. He goes, I'm going to kill him. And they're like, wait, what? And he's like, no, I mean, I'm going to arrest him. And it's like, it's got this like comedic tone to it. And the whole time he's trying to solve this crime and everything is pointing to it being a werewolf, but he refuses to acknowledge the idea that it could be a fucking werewolf, you know?
Yeah.
So if you enjoy Simon Pegg in Hot Fuzz, you'd love this fucking guy. I don't know his name. He's been in a couple of movies with this same director, and he's hilarious. He's fucking great. And he plays just like that. So check that movie out. You'll like it.
Yeah. And I think this is the last thing we could really go over is what's the most overlooked X-Men film?
All right. You ready for an unpopular opinion?
Yeah.
All right. When you say what's the most overlooked film, I'll say it's the worst film. The one that everybody always says sucks the worst is The Last Stand, right? 3, X-Men.
Yeah, dude, that's the best. That's like that's not the best, but it's actually it's a good ending to the trilogy. That's how I describe it. It's a good ending to the first 3 films because the first 3 films are really good.
It's awful in what's awful about it. Right? Like the things that are bad about it are bad. But the things that they get right, that are comic accurate right. Like there's a scene with Angel where he's in the bathroom and he's got this like harness under his shirt that he's wearing to keep his wings in. And that is a pull from like the 60s and 70s comics. That's a pull from how Warren Worthington was able to keep his wings in a suit and not everybody would know, you know, because he's like Bruce Wayne. He's like a playboy billionaire, right? There's the Kelsey Grammer scene where he's Beast and he fucking actually attacks at the end. Like, come on, man. It's like everything you could ever want in a fucking X-Men movie. The elements were there. They fucked the story, and of course, it didn't deliver as it should. Brett Ratner sucks as director, so you know what I mean. Like if Bryan Singer directed that movie, it'd be better. You know, 1 and 2 are pretty fucking great movies, and then 3 is just But there's some really great stuff amongst that shit. that is the whole movie.
Yeah, but I
So
was
if you
watching
ask
this
me,
before. I was watching the X-Men before I cared at all about any of the new. Nah, I can't say I didn't care about Iron Man at the time. I loved Iron Man at the time. I was watching more X-Men movies, like, because there was more X-Men movies. But I was watching, like, as soon as X-Men Origins Wolverine out, I was like, this is all right. And I'm only like 5 at the time. So, but I'm still like able to watch the X-Men 1, 2, and 3 and realize, oh, these are actually pretty dope, and I really like them. And I saw X-Men First Class in Disneyland or Disney World and it was awesome. I think First Class is awesome because Matthew Vaughn, the director of that.
yeah, yeah, and again, I think both of those are really, those two movies, First Class, and then I forget what's the one that comes right after First Class is it Age of Apocalypse? It comes after First Class?
Oh, no, the Wolverine, and then um, Days of Future Past.
Days of Future Past, and then those two I thought were good.
Days of
And
Future
then
Past is actually pretty good. I
yeah, and
really
then
liked
Age
it.
of Apocalypse I thought is where it started to get kind of like, fuck, here we go again.
It was.
And this
I look at it the same way I look at The Last Stand. Cool elements, but never really fully
Phoenix
delivered as
is
a
just
story.
I've tried to watch the Phoenix movie like 4 times, and I've not yet to get through it. I can't. It's so bad. It's painfully bad, and it's sad because it's like one of the best stories in the Marvel history, and Marvel has been using it for 30 years. 30 years they've been using it over and over and over again, and they can't get it right once. Like they can't get it right once on the fucking big screen. Like I just wish I wish they got that right. But I thought they did a really good job with Days of Future Past.
What I wish
And
the MCU did right was which they might be continuing doing, but I don't know, is Ultron. He's a villain that's supposed to come back a million fucking times, but they just not. Like, come on, he's supposed to be coming back, and he's supposed to be like Loki, really.
uh-huh.
Is he's gonna be coming back? I want to see a West Coast Avengers thing, and that's what I think they're kind of leading into, because I love the West Coast Avengers a lot.
That's my favorite, and that's a favorite of my friend Joe, another friend of ours, Tommy, and us, that common friend that I told you about.
Yeah.
He's a big West Coast Avengers fan. And like this whole time watching WandaVision, he's like, I'm telling you, it's coming. Here it comes. And I'm like, yep, I know. Because to me, growing up, those Avengers books in the 80s were my favorite comics. I inherited a lot of books from the 80s from somebody. So in the 90s, I was reading all those 80s X-Men and Avengers books.
There was this war that happened in the comics for like it was like this guy, and he was all purple, and he was like something the war, not with Hydra.
High Evolutionary.
High Evolutionary. That was awesome. That was dope. That's what I want to see. I want to see the High Evolutionary War.
Yeah, I think we might be getting something close to that. I think you're on the right track. Trust me. I also, I've heard a lot of fucking interesting things in terms of, what could happen this week. If any of those things come true, any of them, I would be okay. Like I have preferences, obviously, but if they just go full John Byrne West Coast Avengers, I'm in. If Doctor Strange shows up, I'm in. If Ultron shows up, I'm in. Like there's not anything that they can do that would make me be like, I don't know. Like I think I could only be more interested after this week. So that's a good first 8 episodes. If they got it to the point where there's nothing that they can do, that I'm gonna be like, to me that's successful, right?
Yeah.
So.
All right, I feel like should wrap this up. This was probably 2 hours, probably. Like,
Close, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for joining. Do you have anything you want to announce about anything before we wrap this up?
Nah, I mean, just check us out at Jacked Kirby on Instagram and the Jacked Kirby podcast. It's definitely something cool for you guys to check out, and we always cross promote everything. Like I said, CCD is the family. That's the old school crew. Everybody's doing their own creative endeavors, but it's all under that banner. So ccd.nyc is the website. And that's it. I mean, like, just check us out. We always have a lot of fun.
In the description to the flow page for that as well. I will definitely put that in the description, and subscribe to them on Apple Podcasts, and follow them on Spotify and also on Instagram, and check out the website, bookmark that website, go back to it whenever you can, and subscribe to this channel as well. We got the sponsors in the description. We got the Audible trial sponsorship. We also got the Vice Prop sponsorship, Good Vibes Clothing sponsorship, and a Patreon, as well as some merchandise. Thanks for watching, and thank you for joining. Goodbye.